Hello, engineer, can you hear me? Just a minute, your mic is off. Can you hear me now? Hello.
Engineer, hi, engineer.
Yes, you can hear me, right?
Okay, I can hear you.
All right. So somebody sent me a text. I was checking on my WhatsApp, and there is a question here. Somebody is asking, what is the source of funding for the mentorship workshop so far that you've been doing, and how do you plan to fund it further when you enter the office if elected? The other question is, what is the basis of the branch funding, and how are you arriving with your calculations from 100,000 to 300,000? You can start with that for the time being, and then Diana.
The person was on the. What was the first question? Funding for PIP?
The source of mentorship. Funding source for mentorship, and how have you been funding it? So since you have been in the council for the previous term, and how are you going to continue working on it if you enter the office, because you started it already? The other one is what is the basis of the branch funding? How did you arrive with your values from 100 to 300,000? Then I will leave the panel to Diana.
And as you answer that, engineer, I can also see someone had asked, like, within the 283 days about the registration process, that you can elaborate more on that, and is it from GE to PE?
Thank you so much. I start with the source for funding for mentorship. Normally, the national and the regional professional interview preparation is organized by the council. And there's a fee that is normally charged for the participants to participate in this particular mentorship program. That is from the IEK point of view. That is the way we've been able to fund this particular mentorship program that are organized by the council. But there are these other mentorship that are done by the engineers who have the will and the love for mentorship. And this has happened just by the finances by these particular professional engineers. So, like for me, the mentorship program that I carry out within the regions of Coast, Central Rift, North Rift, and even the Western region, it is just making arrangements by the graduate engineers, and then you appear there with the mentorship skills and competencies, and you accomplish it within a day, and you go back to your station. But the ones that are done by the council, there's a payment that is done for you to participate in that particular mentorship program. And for a long time, it has been 18,000. Then it went down to 15,000. There are occasions that has happened at 5,000 in the South Rift. And what we are saying moving forward, because we recognize the fact that this is not sustainable, especially for the graduate engineers, some of whom are not even in formal employment. We are looking forward to making these mentorship programs under the IEK sustainable and cheap or affordable to our members. And we are looking to some innovative ideas of even using government institutions like the Kenya Government School that are able to give us these infrastructures and these facilities at low costs, but still achieve our mandate of mentoring our graduate engineers. So going forward, as we get into the council, we shall propose those particular facilities to be used for mentorship. And we recognize that in various regions, these particular facilities that are owned by government are available, and they are available at a lower cost. In terms of funding for the branches and the rationale for 100,000, basically when I asked this basis for 100,000, I was told that this 100,000 was basically for the facilitation of the chair of the branch when he travels to attend the council meetings, and also for facilitation of the branch meetings that used to happen, especially for the traditional branches of Coast, Central, and Western. These meetings would actually happen like after every 4 months. So this 100,000 would then be used for the facilitation of such kind of events in a year. But now we are looking at a situation whereby a branch should be able to even have an office to be able to run these particular functions that we are trying to put in the branches. And they're saying that for the start, given that the accounts that are available now, if we make it like 3 times, and looking at the amount that would even be used for making some rents, payment of some rents, then for the start, 300,000 would be able to suffice in the various regions in the country. But then this is available for review. We know it cannot be cast in stone because things have changed and things will continue to change. And as they come by, we should be able to review this amount so that it is practical with the participation of the chairs from the various branches. I think when we have the first meeting, we will be able to even to have a logical amount that can then be dispensed by the main council. Now, on the structure of the 243 days, this one, I developed it, and it's a template that starts from the simple thing of just downloading the form from the internet. And that has been given a timeline until the date you attend the interview and pass the interview. And then you go into the market and start mentoring other engineers. So from the first day of you as a graduate engineer, taking that bold step of downloading the form from the website of IEK or EBK, filling it in, having it approved by engineers of good standing, taking this particular form and submitting it to IEK or EBK, then receiving the feedback from EBK that you should now submit your training and experience report and the professional project report. So all these particular deliverables have been given timelines. Even the time you start preparing your training and experience report, how many days do you take to do that? The time you take to define the problem statement under the project report, how many days do you take that? What is the time frame that is given to the supervisors to review your project report and give you back for correction? So that is all documented in that particular project. So if you follow it, you will find that within these 243 days, you should be able to be registered, provided you have attained the mandatory 3 years experience. And then within 243 days,
Engineer, check your mic.
Yeah, I was also wondering whether I'm the only one not hearing him. Engineer,
Engineer, you are off. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. Hello, can you hear me? Engineer, we can't hear you.
we still can't hear you, engineer. Can see you talking, but we can't hear.
I think he had a problem. We had agreed he'd be using the headphones. I don't know what's happening with the. Hello, can you hear me, engineer? his mic is on, but very, very not sensitive at all. Even when he breathes, there's nothing. Can you hear me? I can hear. I can't see. Hello. Okay. You are typing something. Engineer.
Engineer Ndolo, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. All right. Now,
Yeah.
other members can hear. Diana, you can hear him. Good.
Yes, I can.
Yes, there's a question here for you, engineer.
Yes.
On the Supreme Court ruling, for the Gs that got their registration via Supreme Court, what was the conclusion of those who are already corporate members of IEK? Because they are supposed now to transfer to PE, the other side, to get their license.
You're talking about the Supreme Court ruling?
No. Like we have after the Supreme Court, there were people who had been working for maybe even 10 years.
Yes.
And they already even went ahead and submitted a project, and they were interviewed at IEK. They passed the professional interview at IEK. But then there is another thing that EBK is now saying that they have to wait 3 years, yet they're supposed to go direct now because they've been in the field for more than 10 years. They have been registered, they are proven that they are capable at IEK. They passed the interview. But EBK is insisting that they have to wait for 3 years post GE registration.
Okay. I think as IEK, we did look at the documents of these graduates and certify them that they have attained the requisite experience to be admitted as a corporate member. And the general agreement on this particular cadre of people was that it will be dealt with on a need-by-need basis. And therefore, that means each particular applicant will have to put their case. Because if after the Supreme Court ruling, then the individual went ahead and made the application with the EBK, for example, if the ruling happened in 2017, and in 2018, the individual made the application immediately to EBK. And that means he has now done 1.5 years since registration with EBK. But looking at the experience of this particular graduate engineer, he has done more like 10 years, which automatically gives him the experience that is required for registration. So we believe that with the case put forward by the applicant to the regulator, they should be able to move this one forward. But the secretary would be giving a statement on the deliberation that we had yesterday with EBK.
I will ask one question, and then members can chip in. I am of the opinion that engineers' regulation should not be divided, whereby we have technologists in another body, we have technicians in another body, we have engineers in another body. Why can't we go the United Kingdom way when they had this kind of scenario and they had to break everything down and went for one regulation body, that is the Engineering Council of UK, and change the setup such that people join a professional society who mentors them before they graduate to getting the practice license, the way it's done in the UK. As an electrical person, I know you know that the system in the UK is different. You apply to a society. For example, electronics people, they apply to Institute of Engineering and Technology, and then you proceed after 2 years, and during that time there is a mentor that is attached to you. You can apply for a mentor if you don't have. If you have one, you just give the name and the contacts of the mentor, and then you go on and he or she mentors you, and after some time the society is the one that forwards your documents for licensing, and then you will go a panel or an exam that is given by the Engineering Council of UK. So, and even at IET, Institute of Engineering and Technology, there is the technicians there and the technologists inside it. So why can't we look for that idea? What is your say about this? Are we able to change the setup and bring all the engineering societies in Kenya? That is all that is connected with the engineering profession. Because there's no, if you can't, an engineer cannot work without a technologist or a technician, especially those who are in the field all the time. So what is your take on this?
Thank you so much, Engineer Ndolo. I want to say that our position and my position once we get into the council would be to start the amendment process of the Engineers Act of 2011. And we are envisaging that we want to bring the technologists, we want to make a provision for the technician to be under one particular umbrella. And this amendment would be necessary for us to be able to cooperate with these technicians and the technologies, because engineering is never in a vacuum. There's a portion that is done by the engineer, there's a portion that is done by a technician, there's a portion that is done by the artisan and even the craft. And therefore, that one makes a whole engineering process to be complete. And therefore, the amendment of the Engineers Act must happen so that we have all these technologists and the technicians under one act. And that one, we will do it as a council to start the amendment process of the Engineers Act of 2011 so that this Technologies Act can be repealed so that we are under one umbrella.
Diana, take over.
So my question is, well, I might have missed it if in case you stated it, but it's on the mentor, especially the university students. So I'm curious to know, well, I've been part of them and also I've been part of the students who have been sponsored for the international conferences, courtesy of you, thank you. So, but I wanted to know, have you structured these mentorships in a practical way, like making industry visits more deliberate for the students? Because, well, I understand that IEK, yeah, sometimes you have gone for industry visits to the main IEK, but are there in that mentorship category of students, instead of just forums and forums, are there practical methods? Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Diana. I must say we are, with the employment of our CEO, we are now having a structure that will ensure that in those practical visits, we have a structure that makes it possible for the students, the university students, to be able to participate in these particular industrial visits. In the past, it has not been very practical because it has only been for the members of the professional engineers and graduate engineers who have been involved in these particular industrial visits that provide this kind of mentorship. But we are working on the structures that will ensure that the various cadres of members of the institution of engineers, ranging from students, the graduates, the PEs, and the CEs, have a mentorship cake that they're able to get out of this particular program. So that structure will be there, that will take care of the university students so that they're able to engage with the industries, so that even their innovative innovations that they have at the universities can be taken by these particular industries and be implemented by these particular industries so that they have a reason to showcase what they have done at the university.
Okay, so I can see Gitonga G is asking, in terms of student membership, has IEK thought of sponsoring Mangu maths contest? Yeah, I remember that maths contest when I was in high school also. We used to go there and people even scoring a 5 would be really hard. So yeah, please comment on that.
Can you come over the question again?
In terms of student membership, has IEK thought, yes, student membership, That is Getonga G asking, in terms of student membership, has IEK thought of sponsoring Mangu Maths contest? Gitonga, if you don't mind, you could unmute your microphone and clarify on your question. Or rather, I think he's asking about sponsoring maths contest.
About the Mangu Maths contest.
I think it's not only maths. I think he's asking what is IEK doing to sponsor. I was a member of, for example, Science Congress Club.
Yes.
Yeah. So going for this under Science Congress Club, we used to go for maths contests, say in Maseno school, going to Mangu and other places. So is IEK in a position, in his question, IEK in a position to either sponsor such kind of contests, and during those contests, they can have a table whereby they have student membership?
Excuse me.
Thank you so much. That is the direction we are moving into. We want to collaborate. Under Young Engineers chapter, the high school student is a component of the Young Engineers chapter. And this Science Congress are some of the avenues that we are able to actually get to know the capabilities of these students when they showcase what they have. So we'll be able to take it a notch higher by ensuring that we collaborate with the science, the Ministry of Education, so that whenever these particular congresses are happening in the various parts of the country, IEK become part and parcel of the organization, so that we have a tent and we can start engaging with the student at that level and appreciating what they are capable of doing under that auspices.
Gitonga, you want to say something?
Yeah, I think he has answered my question, but I can ask another question. Sure. There's a group of important professionals, important people in the field of engineering called foremen, what we call foremen, quote unquote. And I'm asking, how can IEK bring them on board and let them have those membership and let them polish their knowledge and their skills using IEK as a platform?
Engineer Bitonga, you talked about the foremen.
Yes, quote unquote diploma holders.
Okay. We have that provision in our constitution even as we speak today. We have a provision of technician member. We have a provision of engineering technician graduate. We have a provision for technologists and engineering technologists, even under our new constitution, our current constitution in IEK. And therefore, anybody who has a diploma and above is free to actually make application, and we shall admit those particular applications in our membership, because we have a provision for diploma holders in our current constitution. So we'll be more than willing to have them there, because even as we repeal this particular act, we'll be bringing all these people together under one umbrella, and when they become registered with EBK, they automatically become registered with IEK. But as we speak right now, since they're not in EBK, but IEK has that provision of registering those people with diploma, and they have that particular membership class, we are able to register them once we have those applications submitted to IEK.
But engineer, under what is the moral authority that gives us the right to register technician and technologist if they are under another body and they are under another government ministry? What moral do we have to register them? If for one to be registered by IEK, that person must be registered by EBK. These people, there's no that provision that gives them the right to come to IEK anymore.
We are not registering them. We are admitting them in the membership class of engineering technologists and engineering technician.
And how are they going to progress in membership platform and even to become professional technologists?
They will be able to progress in a sense that, we have diploma holders who have, in fact, we have craft holders. And these are a very typical example. Somebody who started with a craft class and then went and did a diploma and then did a higher national diploma and then went for a degree course. And he has grown through those ranks, and he has now graduated from a technologist into an engineer. And they have become registered as even professional engineers. So there is that option. Once you have done your diploma and you have the option of upgrading yourself into higher national diploma and then becoming, doing a BSc, and then you become a professional engineer. So you can grow through those ranks, even though it takes quite a little bit of some time.
Yeah, that's true. And I think even as you emphasize on mentorship in universities, like when we had a visit to Nyandarua Institute of Science and Technology with the IEK South Rift branch, you could find most questions. That was in February 10th, last month. Yeah, in March, last month.
Yes.
So most of the students were wondering, okay, what does our future look like? You're telling us about IEK, EBK, but will we get there? Though we gave them examples of like the chairperson of GDC, so I think as you focus on mentorship in universities, high schools, also that group of people is very important and crucial.
Very critical,
So,
Diana. I think it has been forgotten a lot, but we will endeavor now that with this particular option of having everybody under one umbrella, we'll be able to include those tertiary institutions that have engineering training in our calendar so that we can continue to reach them during our mentorship programs.
yeah, that would be perfect. So also asking for anyone else with a question to bring it up.
In the previous ERB, there used to be a provision whereby when one person reaches the age of 40, they are allowed to apply directly. I used to hear that rumor. When you are 40, you are automatically becoming an engineer. What happened to it, and why were people thinking that when they are 40 they apply for it? They just apply and they go ahead and become professional engineers.
We can wait for 40.
Yeah, so we can also. The other one is. What is your take about gender parity in engineering council committees? So far, we have very few engineer ladies are coming in. If the numbers are not adding up, can we count on you, if elected, you will fight for gender parity in all the committees? Gender parity also means at the same time you'll be able to find each engineering program, if it's the agricultural, electronics, instrumentation, control, but at least the number must have all professions, all professions of professional engineering. At the same time, the gender parity in consideration. How will you fight for that? And can we count on you to fight for it for us?
Thank you so much, Nyandolo. Starting with the first question on the automatic registration upon attainment of 45 years old. I think that was a provision under the old Act, the ERB Act, that you would then be registered once you attain the age of 45. It was not 42, it used to be 45. And it was not automatic as per se. This individual would be required to submit his documents and just have a discussion with the panelists, but then he would not proceed to the written tests that normally happens in the afternoon. So this was before the Engineers Act of 2011, which then remove the option of the age, and now everybody is exposed to this particular interview irrespective of the age. Now, in terms of gender parity, looking at the composition of the aspirants in this particular contest that we're having this year, I must say that it appears very balanced in terms of the gender, but in the event that the gender parity is witnessed after the elections, there's normally an option of co-opting 2 members. This basically is normally supposed to balance the gender, to balance the disciplines, so that then we have a balanced council at the end of the day. So once the election results are out, the first thing that we normally do as the council is to check for this parity so that we can then normalize the parity. This one we will definitely do because it has always happened to be able to balance the disciplines and the gender.
So far, graduate engineers have also, the graduate engineers have taken their time and they have shown that they can do wonders. A good example is the one hosting North Rift. Yeah, and they have done wonders. These things have defeated the IEK and Engineers Institute of Kenya. It has been long, and we can see that graduate engineers can do something. Can we count on you to co-opt graduate engineers in the committees? At least there are several committees that are going to be there. So at least if one committee, 2, 3, or 4 committees get graduate engineers at 1, 1, 1, 1, it will be good. Can we count on that? Because
you can count on me, especially the Young Engineers chapter. I did even co-opt a graduate engineer in the last council. There's a graduate engineer by the name Mary Abung. She used to attend our Young Engineers chapter, and we believe that this one can happen. So we will try to do this one once we get into the council, so that we have the graduate engineers in these committees. For sure, the young engineers we have in this country have done marvelous, and we continue to do marvelous. And therefore, their expertise and the skills that they have is necessary for running of our business.
Sure. Any other question, members?
I wanted to raise this issue, maybe to drag us a bit backwards. According to the Engineers Act 2011, Part 3, Section 16, someone talking about provisions relating to registration. Just going through the first article, for professional engineer, subject to the provisions of this act, a person shall be eligible for registration and this act as a professional or consult engineer if A, that person is registered as a graduate engineer and has obtained practical experience as prescribed under this act. There are other items down there, but I think they waste a lot of time for us to go through them. I have 2 questions out of it. The first one is, engineer, we appreciate that we don't have a lot of activity currently where we will need to engage in to satisfy the first item of that article. Registered graduate engineer and has obtained practical experience. This practical experience, in many instances, is a bit ragtag because somebody does a masonry there, provides a few drawings, and you feel incompetent. You don't feel that is sufficient experience to use to submit as a US practical experience for purposes of this examination. Have you ever thought about all these EPCF and EPC projects which have sufficient exposure to graduate engineers to get experience, which might be considered adequate for registration? I'm thinking about those dams. We don't want to talk about them. The Northern Collector Tunnel, sometimes last year we had an IEK trip to the site, and it had a lot of engagements that would be important or good for somebody to take as practical experience for purposes of the report. There's a Concert City infrastructure project. Recently, I think somebody populated this Naivasha Traco site. There's the Turkana windmill projects. The SGR phase 2A, I think, has just gone, perhaps, as we get to phase 2B. Why I'm listing them is, would it be possible in your mind? I know it will come up because this is one of my pillars in my aspirations. Would it occur to you that if IEK could formulate a way of identifying or profiling eligible GEs and you put them on these projects and give them some support, because of course they need to get there and they need to eat and they need to travel, they need to live, some form of stipend, would it go in a long way to help them to get this practical experience? Because if today we went mentoring people, go out there flat out to lobby to get guys to apply, if they don't have the experience, they will not pass that exam most likely.
Yes.
Yeah, would it be something that you need to consider? So that at the end of the day, I think we look at both ends of the argument where we want them to have that experience. We want them to submit this report of practical engagement in a real site. By facilitating them to get involved in these projects, we, I think, push the argument to the practicality aspect. I know you mentioned, that's my second point, you also mentioned that we'll be thinking about reviewing or repealing or lobbying or advocating for repealing of this act. And some of this, I think, I'm not saying that it should remain, but they look a bit of bare minimum. Why am I saying this? In the recent past, we have experiences of buildings that have come tumbling down. And when you visit those sites and say, Nani alikuwa hapa, you know, it's like, this is the guy. I'm a structural engineer. And sometimes when you've gone to some of these sites, even before it comes down, everybody tells you, like, tunawekanga wa 8 at 200. Okay, for structural engineers, they understand what that is. There apparently needs to be a connection between what people are doing on site in terms of the correctness, and the correctness can only come when it is supervised. Now, this thing of a practical experience, I think, seems a bit of a bare minimum. What else would it be if we went to repeal this act? So that as we go forward, and I'm not critiquing what I'm going to present on my own anyway, we actually look at, okay, people are saying they want to be registered. But if you tell somebody, okay, tell us what you've done in terms of your practical experience, it's just the bare minimum, isn't it?
Thank you, Engineer. This is now a transition from GE to PE.
Engineer,
and these projects that are happening in the country, you know, some of them are EPC.
Engineer, just a minute.
And now as institutions, Institute of Engineers of Kenya.
Hello. Hello, Engineer.
Hello.
My settings is showing me that we need to take a break. Let's take 1 minute, then you can start. We will have another session for 35 minutes. Then you can start from what Engineer Nyama is asking. I will connect. I will cut and I will start saving this one and start immediately another session.
Okay.
We won't take long.